So if you've woken up at any point in your life and gone to yourself, I really want to see someone just explode in a pro wrestling ring, well, AEW has decided to make all your dreams come true. And if you haven't seen this week's episode of Dynamite, don't worry, I will get to it soon. I couldn't quite believe it. What you can believe is the man, Miss Simon Miller. Obviously, imagine you couldn't believe that. You'd be a strange trap. And this is WhatCulture Wrestling. And because All Elite Wrestling did just have another show, I thought I'd better take my finger of power and give the good bits an up and the bad bits a down. So let's do that right now. Fascinated as to what is going to happen between one Matt Hardy and one Hangman Adam Page, because they kicked off this week's AEW Dynamite to take on TH2, and not only were they teaming very well together, not only were they kind of friendly, but they actually won. And honestly, this could have been over really quickly if Angelico hadn't tagged himself in early on, so TH2 could get back on the front foot. Like I say, Matt Hardy and Hangman Page just have a wonderful little bit of chemistry. Jack Evans was even attacking Hardy on the outside, so in a panic he had to tag Hangman Adam Page back in. And when it always comes to the Cowboy and tag teams, he is the guy that will come to save you. He was just in control. He even had the thing won after a buckshot lariat, but like he continues to do, Matt Hardy blind tagged himself back in because he just has to get the pinfall, but this time, kind of hilariously, it didn't work at all. Because TH2 just started to beat him up and Jack Evans almost pinned him after a Phoenix Splash. Now, yes, it has to be said, it was a very strange Phoenix Splash. I'm not 100% sure what happened, but as long as Mr. Evans is okay, then I don't care. But it did require Adam to get back in the ring and hit them both with a buckshot lariat before Matt Hardy was able to hit the twist of fate and get the 1, 2, 3. So if you're trying to figure out who is the dominant member of this team and who, well, kind of sucks, we just figured it out. At first it seemed like he was trying to get on Adam Page's good side afterwards too, because Matt Hardy got on the microphone and was like, man, Hangman Adam Page, you're the best thing ever. Hey, everybody, let's start cheering for the Cowboy. But as always, Hangman, he's just too smart. Because Page brought out the Jacksonville Jaguars mascot, because why the hell not, who was holding that contract for last week, and Hangman said to Hardy, man, you signed the wrong deal, you absolute doofus, and now I get a match with you at Revolution, and if I beat you, all your Q1 financial earnings are coming to me. Hardy kind of freaked out, but was also able to get the same stipulations for himself, when from nowhere, this cute and colourful mascot started to beat up the Cowboy. And I was like, well, this is not something I want to see in my life. But of course, it wasn't a lovely Jaguar, and under the hood was Isaiah Cassidy from Private Party, who was helping out his boss. Spending the chance to be dicks again, and the fact that Matt Hardy had offered them a lot of money to do this, TH2 then got back in there, and everybody was beating up Hangman Adam Page until, of course, who came out to make the save? The Dark Order. They were here to save their friend and lover, and it did end with all the good guys celebrating, which makes me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. But there is so much to enjoy here. Number one, Hangman Adam Page is still a smart babyface, which you rarely see in professional wrestling. But also, two, if you want to make the argument that Matt Hardy had also been intelligent, you could have done. Because even though he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you've done that, you could say he must have watched the show from last week, because why else would Isaiah Cassidy be hidden under the hood? So there's so much to this, and finally Hangman isn't trusting anybody. He has learned, for goodness sake, he's evolved like a Pokemon. That's why I'm giving it up. Had an interview with the Inner Circle afterwards too, where Santana and Ortiz said the only reason they're only just getting a title shot now is because the AEW Tag Team division has been running scared. MJF then ignored all of this and started moaning about Sammy Guevara when Chris Jericho said, look, Maxwell, you've got to shut up. Much like potentially Matt Hardy, I watched Dynamite last week. I saw what you did. You pushed all Sammy Guevara's buttons. What did you think was going to happen? Jericho still isn't going to forgive Sammy because he walked out on the Inner Circle, so that's it. He's dead to him. And as I always say, come on now. Chris Jericho now hates MJF. Chris Jericho now hates Sammy Guevara. You don't think that maybe those two are in cahoots? I am so gonna die on this hill. Riho was then back on AEW, and this was awesome. For starters, she's a proven ratings draw back in the day when she was here 11 months ago, but also, she's such a good professional wrestler. And do you know who else is a really good professional wrestler? Serena Deeb, and they were taking on each other in the first round of the Eliminated Tournament, and I am giving it up. They went proper old school wrestling at first as they were trying to out-grapple each other, and when they realised they were kind of at a stalemate, out came the kicks and out came the dragon suplexes, and out came a lot of people landing right on their head. Deeb rolled through a crossbody and went after Riho's leg, but Riho didn't like that, so hit a massive kick and then followed that up with a double foot stomp. And we also had this kind of injury angle here with Serena Deeb. Like when Riho was on the outside going, oh no, I'm in loads of pain, Doc Sampson was trying to help Serena Deeb, and that kind of tied into the story of the match. When they were both back on their feet though, Serena went for that stretch muffler, which I always enjoy because it does have the greatest name in all of professional wrestling. And then do you know what Riho did to counter? She went for the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. But she clearly hasn't been practicing, Serena Deeb kicked out. There was then another great near fall after another great foot stomp by Riho. Then they started to trade submissions, and they even started to trade surprise roll-ups, which actually is how this match finished. Because Riho pulled out the bag, the Gato clutch, which is some kind of leveled up surprise roll-up, and it did surprise Serena Deeb so much, her shoulders went down for the uno, dos, tres. And I was absolutely perfectly fine with this because the ending sequence was so good and it kind of felt like they were trying to get one over the other person. And also, do you know what the next match is now? It's Thunder Rosa versus Riho, another match I never knew I needed. A Jade Cargill video followed this too, and as always, everyone's going, I don't understand why AEW is pushing Jade Cargill. Just watch the videos. She looks like she could murder us all. And she was playing basketball with Shaq here. For some reason, that just makes her really cool. Orange Cassidy with Chuck Taylor in his corner was then taken on Luther with maybe Serpentico in his corner. And this was fine, but I didn't really get much out of it. Down. And why? Well, mostly it all comes down to what we have been doing with Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor recently. Cassidy, especially coming off his feud with Chris Jericho, had all the momentum in the world, but now, well, he just feels a little bit flat. And I understand somebody's always got to suffer because AEW has so many guys they want to do stuff with, but it just feels a little bit disappointing. And we didn't see Miro here. He never ran out to wreck these fools even though he hates them. It just doesn't really add up. It was also really quick as well. I don't think it went more than a couple of minutes and Chuck Taylor took out Serpentico. So then Orange Cassidy hit Luther with the orange punch. And that was it. 1, 2, 3. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of glad I was here. We may as well move on to something else. It was then everything with Sting, Darby Allin and Team Taz. And if you were a betting human being and you had walked down to your bookies and said, look, I would like to place a bet that on this upcoming episode of Dynamite, Team Taz calls out Sting, they look at each other, and then they just go their separate ways, well, you probably would have won. And we kind of did that here, but just with a tiny bit of a twist, it made it so damn good. Because Team Taz were out first, they were laughing at this idea that Sting was going to come to confront them, but Sting did want to do this. He wasted no time, and the snow started to pour from the skies, and out came the icon. Taz then mocked him straight away because he felt like he had to use his bat, so Sting threw the bat on the floor, and he started to beat up Team Taz. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sting is getting physical, and I got very excited. But then, flub me sideways, because just as the Stinger was running wild, Brian Cage booted him in the gut, positioned him for a powerbomb. I thought, surely Darby Allin's going to come out to save him. But he didn't, and he not gave him a powerbomb, but he gave him one of the most devastating and sickest and horrible looking powerbombs I have ever seen. Now, none of that is true, apart from the fact he gave him a powerbomb, but because I was so worried about Sting, he may as well have just chucked him through the earth. Because I was kind of freaked out by this as if I was Sting's dad, and mathematically I tell you, that doesn't make any sense. This rocked though because it had me buying in emotionally, and wrestling is all about buying in with your emotions. I may as well have been one giant tear. And yes, I know, I get it, Sting is 61 years old, why he's doing this. I'm pretty sure Sting knows what he can and what he can't get away with, and in terms of an angle, well, this absolutely ticked my box. I mean, it was so good, it made me go, oh my gosh, as I was sat there on my sofa, and it's just turned Brian Cage into an even bigger beast than he was already. I am ready for this match. Eddie Kingston then forced the Butcher and the Blade to close their shop for an evening because they were all cutting a promo here, because of course our main event is these three taking on Jon Moxley, Lance Archer, and that crazy fool Ray Phoenix. Eddie kept this simple as well. He hates all three of these guys, and as ever, I totally believe that he does hate them, because every single thing Eddie Kingston does is 100% real. These Kenny Omega skits too, could we make him any more of a prick? He was speaking at a preschool here when Alex, I'm there, I'm here, I'm everywhere, Marvez turned up and tried to get a word. Don Callis then shooed him away, and Omega actually sat down with these children and started reading from the Young Bucks' autobiography. And the reason he was doing that is because he had found a passage when they talked about how great Kenny Omega was and how great Kenny Omega had made New Japan. So of course, this was literally our world champion trying to sell himself to the youth of tomorrow. Callis then made them all chant Kenny Omega's name before they decided to leave. I know some people didn't like this, especially because it ended with the kids being told to play with Michael Nakazawa and they just kicked him in the shin and beat him up. But it really made me laugh. I thought it was entertaining. I love that Kenny Omega is just this super moron, but it's fine because you know when he's in the ring, he's going to back it all up. More of this, I say. It was then our world title tag team match, and AEW must have done a good job on this because I had convinced myself that Santana and Ortiz were going to win and they were going to face the Inner Circle at Revolution before that group exploded. That's all you got to do, man. Up. Santana and Nick Jackson started things off too, with the challenger getting the upper hand. And this was also true when Ortiz got in there. And it took Matt Jackson having to tag himself in to settle and calm everything down. Omega, Callis and the Good Brothers were then shown watching this in the back. And of course they were watching it from crazy angles because they were taking the mick out of WWE. Yes, I do understand. And at this moment, MJF decided he was going to try and get involved. But the referee smelled this instantly. And he said to Maxwell, now not only do you have to go back, but the whole group, you're out of here. So yes, again, I'm just going to say it quickly. If MJF doesn't have something planned, then I am a monkey's uncle. And I'm not. I had the test done. Going back to the match, it was actually Matt Jackson that got the hot tag, which is kind of different for a Young Bucks encounter because usually that goes to Nick, but it doesn't matter who you do hot slap in there. Both of these guys know what the hell they're doing. And of course, then Nick Jackson was back to his feet and the Young Bucks started to do all their double team maneuvers. Let's not pretend otherwise. They are such a good tag team. They almost had this 1-2 because they were setting up for the more bang for your buck, but instead Ortiz was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And he hit Nick Jackson with an avalanche Falcon Arrow. And that move is absolutely bonkers. Matt then broke up an octopus hold by Ortiz, and you could just see that the finishing sequence was about to come because all the moves were ramping up and the speed was just getting as crazy as a Formula One car. The best near fall came from Santana and Ortiz too because they hit the street sweeper, and Nick Jackson broke this up at literally the last millisecond. They were so mad about that they just powerbombed Matt Jackson into the crowd. Because why the hell not? Unfortunately, this meant they did kind of take their eye off the prize because when Ortiz got back in the ring, Nick Jackson was waiting with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. And you can't argue that one. It was a surprise roll-up to retain his tag team championships. The Inner Circle were then back out here like somebody had promised them another trip to Vegas, and they were just beating the hell out of Matt and Nick Jackson. In the back, you saw Kenny Omega pretending that he wanted to help, but Don Callis was stopping him. And was this real or was it fake? I don't think we're meant to know. For some reason, Brandon Cutler thought, hey, maybe I can try and make the save, and he absolutely failed because Jake Hager murdered him on the rampway. And yeah, Chris Jericho and MJF then applied the walls of Jericho and the armbar to Matt and Nick Jackson, and it looked like all their limbs were about to break when the Good Brothers did come out, but honestly, they were slower than a flipping tractor. Jericho then got in the Young Bucks' mum and dad's face, who just happened to be at ringside, and the dad pushed him away, but he seemed to love this. And there's no two ways about it now. At Revolution, we are going to get Chris Jericho and MJF taking on the Young Bucks. I don't really know what's going to happen other than the fact that Sammy Guevara will return, and we will find out if I'm very wrong, or we will find out if I'm very right. And I know this was another surprise roll-up. When AEW starts doing 72 in a single week, then I will talk about it more. That's just the way it has to work. We can't judge every single promotion by somebody else's mistakes. We then got a quick video and a live in the arena segment telling us that Cody and Brandy Rhodes are gonna have a baby girl. And of course that gets enough. Real life situations are far more important than professional wrestling. And myself and everybody at WhatCulture Wrestling just wishes them the best. I actually like the fact that AEW does this stuff. It makes you feel closer to the performers. Cody also then got on commentary for the next match, but before we got there, we were told that at Revolution, we are going to have a 6-way ladder match to determine who the new #1 contender for the TNT title is. I know some people are going, well, what about the ranking system? Just wait until you hear who's it is. Because at this moment, we have 3 competitors announced, and it is Cody, it is Scorpio Sky, and it is Penta. So even if the other 3 are me, my mum, and my nan, who has passed away, by the way, this thing is still gonna rock because, again, Cody, Penta, Scorpio Sky, trust me, they know what they're doing. So I am not moaning, and I'm also not gonna moan about FTR versus Matt and Mike Seidel. It was just a good professional wrestling match. Tully Blanchard wasn't with FTR this week, I think due to the weather, and it's important to point that out, and you can already figure out what kind of happened here. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler tried to use their ground game, but Matt Sydal and Mike Sydal want to be aeroplanes, so they kept taking to the air and just flying around like birds. Didn't really work, however, as Cash did tag himself in, and he grabbed Mike and he gave him a German suplex that was so vicious, for a split second I thought, we're never going to see him again. Probably because he's just going to explode into dust. Matt got in eventually and was hitting hurricanranas, kicks and knees as if he'd been told, oh, after this evening you're never allowed to do them again. And then Mike was magically back to his feet and he hit a moonsault to the outside. And I kind of feel like in 2021 we see that and go, no, I don't even care. This is a man jumping backwards and then landing right on the floor. It's crazy. Given who was involved, the outcome was a little bit obvious, especially because I don't think we've seen Mike Sydal on Dynamite so far. So FTR was able to hit the big rig and get the 1, 2, 3. But these two have just lost their minds. Because Doc Sampson was in the ring and he was going to check on the people that had just been defeated. But they went, I know what we'll do. We'll take these scissors and we will try and cut Mike Sydal's hair. You can't do that, guys. I know one of you is bald, but so am I. You just got to accept that these full heads have had the better shake of the deal. At that very moment, though, the lights went off, and when they came back on, if you couldn't believe it, who was stood in the ring? None other than the Jurassic Express. And Luchasaurus, he got a brand new swanky mask. Jungle Boy and the Dinosaur then did proceed to beat up FTR, and of course, we're probably going to do that tag team match at the pay-per-view. And the only funny thing about this was that Excalibur was going, oh my gosh, the numbers game has caught up to FTR because Marco Stunt was in there too. And all Marco Stunt was doing was pointing and going, yeah lads, go get 'em. Somebody also mentioned to me earlier, I think AEW does this lights off thing too much. Nah brah, that's not the case at all. You could do the lights off thing for every single show and I would still enjoy it. It just works for me. Had a Jon Moxley promo next to big up the main event and he too kept it nice and simple. He's going to beat up Eddie Kingston because that's just what he does. And he's going to do the same to Kenta when they meet at NJPW Strong. So he said the words. After that, it's going to be back to Kenny Omega, no matter how long it takes him. Not gonna lie, I totally believe Jon Moxley. And then there it was, Mox, Lance Archer and Phoenix taking on the Butcher and the Blade and Eddie Kingston. And Dynamite has kind of fallen into this pattern that all of its main events are just gonna be big nuts brawls. It wasn't as crazy as last week, but it was still up there. And given that it was up there, it can have it up. And it was just crazy instantly as Lance Archer was beating everybody up as he probably dreamed about throwing people through ceilings. And then Phoenix was walking the ropes and throwing himself off there like it was the easiest thing in the world. And Lance Archer followed that up by doing his moonsault thing off the ropes. I swear these people aren't of this planet. Hilariously, Kingston and co were then trying to beat up Archer, and that was never going to work because he just cross-bodied them all. And then thankfully, he was able to tag in Rey Fenix. And I just have a few questions about Rey Fenix. Who the hell is this guy? Who taught him how to wrestle? And how is he able to just defy the laws of gravity and physics? He just doesn't make any sense. He did more springboards than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And then he was just hitting a frog splash from the top. He just does it so effortlessly. I can't even get up out in the morning without smashing my head into a wall, and he's able to do this without blinking. It took all three of Kingston, the Butcher, and the Blade to stop him, but that was like catching a fly. And then we had a really nice moment because Jon Moxley tagged in for his team, Eddie Kingston tagged into his, and it was just a callback to what we'd seen a few months ago. In between all of that too, Archer was grabbing Phoenix and choke slamming him onto both the Butcher and the Blade, because I guess they didn't give him a good discount when he tried to get his meat recently, and I really enjoyed the finish. Because Moxley basically no-sold a spinning elbow from Eddie Kingston. He then hit him with a lariat, finished him off with a paradigm shift, and now we've got this awesome narrative that no matter what Eddie does, he can't beat Mox. And I bet you this, down the line, they will obviously become a tag team. You can smell the love. And also the hate. The Good Brothers were then out again, but this time they were with Kenny Omega and they started to beat up Jon Moxley when Kenny got on the microphone and revealed that Mox had slipped a stipulation into his contract that said he's 100% allowed a World Championship match and that Kenny Omega has decided to grant this request. Now, we do have to be honest, this was a little bit weird because it's the exact same story as Hangman Page and Matt Hardy. It did make me scratch my head. But Kenny said either way he was going to stand up to this, but he gets to choose what they're going to do, which is why it's going to be an exploding barbed wire deathmatch. What the flub? So not only are we crossing the stream when it comes to Japanese wrestlers, apparently now we're just taking their match types too, and I don't think I've ever seen that stipulation on what I will describe as mainstream American wrestling TV. Now, Kenny did go on way too long here, in the sense that Moxley was able to get back to his feet and just headbutt him right in the skull, but that was also a massive mistake, because then Omega V-triggered him twice and basically called him a son of a bitch. That's also how the show ended, and all I could do was go, wait, seriously? We are going to do an exploding barbed wire deathmatch at Revolution. So the gloves are well and truly off. I don't even know what to expect. I don't even know what to expect, but I was flabbergasted. And we don't use that word enough, but that's how Dynamite made me feel, flabbergasted, and I am going to give it an up. Now don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's AEW Dynamite. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on social media. You just search, and there's videos around my head right now. Click one, and you can watch more content. My name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. I'll see you soon.